Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another book review. Thank you for tuning in. So, Kim Mi-wol is the writer I'm focusing on today. And today I'm reviewing three of Kim Mi-wol's short stories: Guide to Seoul Cave, What Has Yet to Happen, and Plaza Hotel. And I'll explain what each story is, how they read, and why they matter together. So, what if modern life felt like living in a cave where you can hear your neighbor breathe, but no one really listens to you? And what if the future looked like a crossroads with no sign to follow? These stories picture Gosiwon rooms, stalled ambitions, and relationships that ache with disappointment. And they ask how young and middle aged people try to keep going when work, money, and safety nets fail. So, I'll show how Kim's calm voice, sharp details, and sympathy for flawed characters turn private struggles into a clear portrait of city life today. Sorry, excuse me. By the end, you'll know whether this trio belongs on your reading list and how to frame them for a conversation about alienation, precarity, and care. So, hello, I'm Barry, and this is Soul Book Club. So, celebrated novelist and short story writer Kim Mi-wol has three excellent short stories available in English translation. Guide to Seoul Cave is about a young woman living in a Gosiwon who is still haunted by a traumatic event from her childhood. Goshiwon, by the way, is a very, very small, low cost single room in a sort of boarding house style building in South Korea. They were originally meant for people who were cramming for civil service exams. And the rooms are typically just a few square meters, really. And they have a bed and a desk and a closet. And usually you share like a bathroom and kitchen. But I think some of the newer ones have private bathrooms, but they're very common near universities and study districts. There's an area called Norangjin, which is famous for them. And they're usually rented on a sort of month-to-month basis, and you don't have to pay much deposit. And so they're very popular with students and workers who are on tight budgets. But the trade-off is that they're cramped. They're often very noisy, and the quality can vary widely. But they are one of the cheapest ways to live centrally in Seoul. And anyway, the central character in Guide to Seoul Cave is living in one of these Goshiwons. And sorry, what? Okay, yeah. So, sorry, the central character in What Has Yet to Happen. Okay, sorry, wait a minute. I'm jumping around here. Yeah, so no, sorry. The central character in Guide to Seoul Cave is living in one of these Goshiwons. The central character in What Has Yet to Happen is another young woman, and she has no clear sense of direction and has to deal with the end of the world. And then the third story, Plaza Hotel, juxtaposes youthful desire and passion with a seemingly empty and passion-free marriage. And nearly all of the characters in these stories, whether they're young or not so young anymore, whether they're well off or poor, are profoundly disappointed with adulthood and the modern world in general, or specifically modern Korean society. And I actually interviewed Kim Mi-wol a few years ago when she was a special guest at Seoul Book Club, and I asked her why all her characters were so jaded and depressed. And she said that the reason why a lot of my characters appear jaded and disappointed is to do with disappointment with the government and Korea's low economic growth and problems related to security and welfare. People are disappointed with society, with the continuous acceleration of mechanization and globalization. Young people have to constantly compete for jobs. This is hurting people who are considering living a normal adult life and starting a family. Increasingly, it's difficult to believe that if you work hard, you can achieve your dreams. From an increasingly young age, kids are worried about finding a job. This is the world right now, and this is why my characters feel depressed, and lots of young people are jaded. And that interview was about, I don't know, 8 years ago. The situation's much worse now, and if you've been following the news in Korea, it's going to get even worse. So I don't know. I don't know what to say about it. This point of view that she, in the quote that I just shared, is most clearly expressed in Guide to Seoul Cave, and that's a story that says that We are all essentially living in our own little caves and we're all cut off from one another. The unnamed narrator of the story lives in a Gosiwon and works in an artificial cave. And this is the kind of place where school kids can go to experience what a cave is like without having to visit a real one. And the Goshiwon lifestyle she describes as chaotic and noisy, but it's also mostly one of solitude and loneliness. She's haunted by the tragic death of her mother, who died when she was a child. She has no goals in life. As a child, she believed that somewhere there must exist a completely new world that I had so far never experienced. But these childhood dreams are gone. Now, her only dream is to live an ordinary life, experiencing only foreseeable events. Her next door neighbor in the Goshiwon is also suffering from her own childhood trauma, and both characters attempt to self medicate with alcohol and prescription drugs. And these two characters are excellent portrayals of alienated and marginalized youths searching for direction and meaning in a challenging social structure. At the end of the story, the narrator is in a kind of limbo, stuck at a literal and metaphorical crossroads and unsure how to proceed, which direction to take in life. All she wants is someone who can show her the right way to go, but of course, there is no such person. This uncertainty about the future is something I can detect in many of my students, and I often worry about their future. I think I agree with Kim Mi-wol. The world is difficult, but what advice can I give them? Anyway, I was also interested in why Kim chose to depict the Goshiwon lifestyle in such a bleak way. And she said it was partly based on her own experiences and that living in a Goshiwon was like being in a coffin. When she lived in a Goshiwon, she could hear the person in the room next door take a tissue out of the tissue box or hear their phone vibrate. But if someone died or committed suicide, she might not have noticed. Kim said that all the feelings evoked by the Goshiwon seemed representative of modern society. So let's move on. So, what would you do if you found out the world was ending in less than 24 hours? Would you panic, call your loved ones, or just carry on as usual? That's the quietly electric premise of what has yet to happen. Another Kim story, this one translated by Jean Miseli, and it's handled with an understated, ironic touch that feels disarmingly real. We meet a young woman who wakes up hungover from a strange dream and then switches on the TV to wall coverage of a rogue asteroid set to hit Earth in under 30 hours. Online, conspiracy theories rage, while outside, Seoul barely seems to flinch. Her mom is still picking red peppers, the downstairs piano teacher keeps practicing, and a delivery driver is still making his rounds. She absent mindedly puts on sunscreen, laughs at herself, thinks about bills that no longer matter, and scrolls through goodbye messages from old friends. By evening, crowds drift to Seoul Plaza to watch the giant screens with her almost boyfriend Kong. She wonders who'll feel the most bitter at the end. Maybe the rich, the people with something to live for before the question turns inward. In a culture of relentless exams, competition, and grind, what have we been living for? Kim, long admired for dissecting the anxieties and alienations of young Koreans, uses this slow, surreal day to show how routine and debt numb us, mixing dry humor with existential dread to leave you pondering not how the world ends, but how you're living right now. And then the final story today is Kim's Plaza Hotel, translated by Brother Anthony. And this story turns a simple staycation into a sly meditation on value, memory, and the ways capitalism and history press on private lives. The hotel's purchased perfection sits across from City Hall. The Plaza Hotel is a famous hotel in downtown Seoul, and it sits across from City Hall where public grief. So at one time, it had an altar to former President Roh Moo-hyun, an unresolved anger. It was a place where people protested about the Yongsan tragedy, which was where some protesters were killed. And so these sort of events, the memories of these events, keep intruding on the fancy hotel lobby's cool air. And then, meanwhile, the narrator of the story, his sort of his past and his present So when he was a young student and thinking about missed dates with a girl he liked, and then these tedious adult routines with his wife. And this is where Kim tracks how ideas of waste mature from taxi fares and hotel prices to the irrecoverable cost of the time of your life. And the result is ironic. It's a quietly aching portrait of Seoul as both a spectacle and a mirror, where consumer comfort can't quite muffle loneliness, and where telling a small, long kept story becomes a bid to prove that the past self and the past us still exists. Anyway, reading Kim Mi-wol's short stories, you can tell she has a great deal of sympathy for her characters. The jaded husband in Plaza Hotel poignantly dreams of his past. There's a kind of sweet irony to the story and what has yet to happen. Kim depicts her characters with kindness and tenderness. She understands that life is difficult and knowing the right thing to do is also difficult. She doesn't judge her characters for the mistakes they may have made. And this might be why she's the perfect writer for the present day. And I, for one, hope I can read more of her stories in translation sometime soon. So thank you for watching this review of Kim Mi-wol's stories. If this helped you decide what to read or maybe even teach, please like the video and subscribe. And tell me in the comments whether you, or tell me in the comments what you'd like me to review next, and I will add it to the list. And as always, thanks for coming. I appreciate you watching, and take care. See you next time.